What's up, Predator fans? It's the Emerald Enthusiast back with another action figure review. This time I'll be taking a look at the Neca Ultimate Armored Lost Predator. Let's have a quick look at the packaging. On the bottom front it says Ultimate Armored Lost Predator. On the side we see the title of the movie, Predator 2. On the opposite side, once again, we see Predator 2, and this is a 30th anniversary edition figure. The top designates this figure as for ages 17 and up. On the bottom, we get product information, including how to activate the LED lights in the helmet. On the back, we get a plethora of product shots and a brief bio of the Lost Predator. Here is a close-up of that bio. If you'd like to read this, just hit pause and do so now. On the inner front flap, we get this really cool shot of the Lost Predator. Mint on card collectors should be happy with the overall composition of the packaging. The figure is front and center. There are two alternate head sculpts off to each side, and the rest of the accessories are framed around the figure's lower body. And now let's bust open this package and see what's inside. Let's have a look at accessories now. And we'll begin with the shuriken. This looks very intimidating. It's not sharp, although it looks like it is, so I appreciate that. Here we have this sword. I appreciate the sculpting on the handle here. And this is pliable. It was easy for me to get it into the scabbard. And we have 3 alternate hands. These will allow the figure to grip the shuriken and the sword. The paint details on these are just masterful. And here we have the open mandible head sculpt. And I'm a fan of just how ornate these head sculpts are. There's a wonderful use of color there. And here's a look at the predlocks. The eyes look very lifelike. And here we have the biomask head sculpt. And this blue is very attractive. The sculpting on this is very intricate. It almost has a Transformers look. So that's a look at the accessories included with the figure. And here we see Borg, the Lost Predator, free of the package and ready to rumble. This hunter has a more cybernetic appearance than the other Yautja, and this figure is very eye-popping. Once again, some areas have articulation issues, so let's take a closer look at the loose details now. Let's start with a look at the lower body. And I'm really impressed by not only these armored pieces, but how realistic the skin looks. You can see that it glistens and it looks very realistic. Here's a look at the toes. These painted red dots run throughout the feet, and it makes the skin look more amphibious than reptilian. These 2 pins in the double jointed knees are not the correct color for this area of the body. Some collectors may take issue with that. It's not a huge deal to me. As you might expect, this armored hip piece hinders the hip articulation somewhat. But the sculpting and the paint stay true to the idea of this being part of Borg's armor and not just a loincloth. Now let's have a look at the torso. And once again, the sculpting here is outstanding. This looks like actual armor that wraps around the rib cage. You can pop this little piece out and get a better look here at the torso. Once again, this mesh is not a separate piece. This is sculpted on. Blue paint that is similar to the shade on the biomask has been applied to the chest and shoulder armor, including the part that holds the plasma caster up here. And these little red accents help convey the idea that this is a type of body armor that uses energy. Now let's have a look at the arms. And these gauntlets are actually separate pieces. They're very tight on the forearms, but you can feel the movement there if you apply a little force. There is excellent paint work on all of the hands. Neca does an outstanding job with those. As I move the figure around, you can see this finish makes the skin look like it's glistening, and I am very impressed by that. I'll talk more about the articulation in just a minute, but obviously with this armor piece up here, as well as the pred locks, there's a lot going on up here, and it does hinder the shoulders somewhat. All of the hands are on hinged pegs, and you just pop those out, and then pop on the new hand that you want on the figure. Now we'll have a look at the plasma caster and the head sculpt. And this moves very easily. It does not have the energy effect like the Elder Predator that I just reviewed. I would have appreciated that. But the sculpting and the paintwork on this are magnificent. Very intricate. Much like the paint on this head sculpt, and this is the closed mandible head sculpt, red and green paints have been expertly used to produce this very alien-looking forehead. And back here we see the pred locks, and once again, these are sensory organs. They're not actually hair, but Neca did an outstanding job at producing those, and this head sculpt looks fantastic. In terms of articulation, you can get the feet to move backward and forward at the ankle joint. They do swivel from side to side, and there is some ankle pivoting. The double jointed knees will allow you to get the figure into a good running pose, so that is impressive. At least on my figure, I have one leg that is really tight, and this leg actually kicks forward very well, especially if I move that armored hip piece. Now the figure still has a moderate amount of articulation out to the sides, so that is decent. And the figure steps back, especially with this leg, quite well. So that will give you posing options. The waist pivoting is hindered somewhat, as you would expect. It is limited, as is the upper torso swivel. There is some movement, but again, all of this armor presents issues for the shoulder joints. You can lift the arms up from the sides this much, so that helps with posing options. I can get this arm to do a 360 at the shoulder, but once again, if you decide to do that, be very careful with the chest armor. There's rotation at both of the wrists. Although the figure has double jointed elbows, they still seem somewhat limited, and that may be due in part to the forearm gauntlets. If you're wondering about the bicep swivel, you can pop this armor piece up and activate that point of articulation, although it seems to be better on this side than the one with the plasma caster. The head moves fairly well from side to side. There's a moderate amount of up and down motion, and there's a minimal amount of head tilting. But once again, the armor and the locks limit the amount of articulation that we get with the neck joint. To activate the LED lights in the biomask, you simply pop off this piece from the very top of the mask, and that will allow you access to this button. And once you press this button, it activates these glowing red eyes. This feature does add an element of menace to the figure, and I do appreciate that. However, these batteries are included within the packaging. They are already in the head sculpt. And I know that mint-on card collectors don't like to open packaging at all. However, if you leave these in the head sculpt, eventually they're going to corrode and ruin this part of the figure. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this review, and please tell all of your friends about this channel. I would certainly appreciate it. and I'll be back with more Predator-related content soon. But until we meet again, this has been the Emerald Enthusiast, and thanks for watching.